Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving into one of the important concepts in Kotlin that is called functions. So what are functions? A function is a block of code which executes a certain task. Suppose you have a function that is defined which only does addition, which only does subtraction, which only does multiplication. In those cases, we use functions so that you uh, you divide the responsibility between other functions so that you don't mess up the entire logic. Suppose you have a big chunk of program to run and you need specific tasks to be handled by specific functions. Instead of writing the entire code in the same function, what we do is we only check we can do is we can divide the responsibility to certain tasks. Okay, we will see that in this section. We will check predefined functions. After that we will check custom functions, that means our own functions. And after that we will check parameterized functions, we'll check return values, and we will check the uh, is equals to operator. Okay, so let's dive in. What is predefined functions? So predefined functions is the kind of functions which Kotlin provides. Okay, so if you go, let's go to the code. Okay, in the code you write something like println, right? So this is a function and you're calling by the argument you're giving it as a string. So if I go it if I go with it, you will see that it is printing the hello. Okay, but okay, let it configure. Meanwhile, we can do is we can get inside it. As you can see, it is in Kotlin internal library with the documentation written as prints the given message and the line separator with the standard output string. As you can see, it is calling the Java internally, that is the system.out.println. This is how you write that in Java, but it has provided an abstraction over the system.out.println. That's why you don't need to write the entire thing. You just write the println so that it will internally call this. Okay. So these are the things are called predefined functions. Suppose you have a function called readline. In Java, you have buffered reader, right? So in buffered reader, what is done is buffered reader, and you do a system dot in, like an input stream that you give. So based on that, this input stream is being written, and there is a function called readline. So this is the same kind of abstraction that has been provided here. As you can see, the readline. Okay, so the readline also does the same. So I'll, for the time being, comment this out because we already know what these predefined functions are doing. Okay, now let's go to custom functions. So what are custom functions? These are the functions that has been that will be written by us rather than focusing on Kotlin, like what Kotlin is providing us, like this predefined functions that Kotlin provides, right? Suppose we want to create our own functions, write our own business logic. In those cases, we do our user defined functions. Suppose so whenever we want to create our own function, the syntax for it is fun. Okay, so the shortcut of function is fun, and suppose we are writing print something. Okay, and inside that you're calling the println that this is print something function. Okay, so you have defined the function here. Now let's call the function. Okay, print something. Okay, so if I run it, you will see that it is printing. It is printing from the print something function. So there are two main things. That is the declaration, that you are declaring what this function does, and you're calling the function. Okay, so this is a sample function that it is just simply printing a string. Okay, now let's jump into a basic function that has a return type. Okay, so if you see here, this is the return values. we are written, right? So we will check the return value. So what is a return value? Suppose if I do a suppose if I do fun and let's do a sum. Okay, and a we are taking as int, b not required. Okay, let's do only the return type. Okay, suppose we are demonstrating that. Suppose the return type is int. Okay, and we are returning suppose 4. So now we have defined the sum function. Now we need to call it. Okay, suppose we are calling it in the sum and we are running it. Okay, so you won't be able to see it because the value that it is returning, we are not printing it. So suppose we are printing it inside the println function. So inside the println function, we are printing it. Now it will give you what? 4. Okay, so a basic function with a return type has been provided here. Okay, now let's go to the next one, that is that is the parameterized functions. Okay, now we will declare a function. Suppose we declare multiply. So what this multiply function will do is, suppose a int b is equals to, we take integer only, and we take the return type as int. Okay, what it will return is a into b. Okay, so we have defined the multiplication function with two arguments, that is this and this, a and b. And what it is doing is it is taking two arguments, right? Let's do multiply a value we will give, we need to call this function, right? So we will give 10 and 15. So as you can see, this has been Kotlin has by default taken a's value as 10, and it has been, so if you run it, you will get to see you got 150. Oh, again, we have not printed it, so let's print it. Okay, then you will get to see what is the value that is being returned. And as you can see that 150 has been returned. Okay, so we have covered the parameterized functions as well, because no matter, you can give the parameter with C as well, and you know you try with into C. Suppose you have got another one and it is C. Now, if you want to call it, then you need to provide three arguments, right? Suppose I provide with 0.5. Okay, it is not giving because what? It is asking for a integer value. So instead of 0.5, we need to provide, suppose, an integer. Okay, now it will give us 300. Okay, so this is how you can define the parameterized functions. Okay, so and you have seen that this is the way we can return some value. Okay, now let's discuss what is equals to operator, which actually eliminates the kind of returns, and simplify your functions. In those cases, what you do is you do fun subtract, and suppose we are calling this, we are taking sum has been done, multiply has been done, suppose we do subtract. Okay, now we are taking two values. What this will do is it will return a subtracted addition. Suppose, and instead of returning, what you do is equals to a minus b, and it's done. You don't need to write return, you don't need to go for any. So if you are having some complicated process in your function, in those cases you might go for a block of code. If your function is pretty straightforward, a single liner expression would be good enough. In those cases, what we do is we just use is equals to. Okay, now let's print it. Subtract, suppose 100 and minus 80 we want to check. In those cases, you can get is 20 as the result. As you can see, you don't need to write. So if your function is complicated enough, then you can write a block of code, then you have to write multiple instructions. Instead, what you can do is, if your function is simple enough so that it can be summarized in a single uh, you know in a single block of code or single expression, in those cases we use is equals to. So in this video, we have learned a predefined functions. We checked the user defined functions. We discussed the functions which are having a single a return type of a parameterized function, and after that we have checked the is equals to function, which actually eliminates the number of lines in your code. So I think you have got a good idea of functions, how we write the function and how we call it. So, okay, so the number of arguments you have, the number of arguments you have to provide while calling. Okay, so I think you have got a basic idea how you do a function. So instead of writing this entire thing inside the same uh, inside the main block of code, rather you can divide the responsibility into four different functions, so that you would be it will be easy for you to debug such scenarios. Okay, so we have discussed most of the scenarios for functions. So I think we are good for this video. We have discussed multiple things. So if if you have learned something from this video, like, subscribe the channel, and comment in the next that what you like to learn next, and do like a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for the next set of tutorials. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Happy coding.